And I'd like to begin with our first panelist, Sue. Sue?
Hi, everybody. Okay. Thank you, Frank, for putting me on first. I can put the butterflies to rest. I want to thank all of you for being here to listen to all of it. Can't hear me?
Yeah, that's better. 1 minute.
And I want to tell you all how I have enjoyed being here this last few days. And you'll find out soon, I'm not a public speaker. And I just never know what people want to hear, what they want to hear me say. And I can only say what I feel. And in the beginning, of course, we never had any idea of what would happen. We just had hopes. We had been in complete desperation at our home, and we were very poor. We had plenty to eat, but we didn't live it up. And when in 1935, when my mother was in the Oxford group with Henrietta Seiberling, and it was through her hope and her prayers that my dad would always become sober, and it happened. And I don't know how to express this, but we just owe an awful lot to the non-AAs in this group, and the hope that Henrietta had for my dad and the love for my mother. And I just wonder how often people think that all this started with two women who were non-alcoholics. And now, everybody says that Dad had a slip and Bill had a slip, but did they? There was nothing to accept in those days. Hadn't come around yet. And everybody tried to the best of their ability to get these two men sober. And until Henrietta and my mother got them together, it just did not work. But when it did, they had a complete rapport with each other. They immediately loved each other in the way that Jesus loved his apostles, not the other way. And and it just goes to show that regardless of what you are, if you have the seed of hope and the desire to have somebody sober and happy, and you hold that in your heart, you are going to eventually, that seed will grow. Now, there was a very strong bond and a very strong love, like I say, between Dad and Bill. And they had two assets during that time, as I see it. Now, one of them may not be considered an asset, but I think it was. One was that there was a lot of time that they could spend with each other, and the other was there was a lot of unemployment, which is not a blessing today. But at that time, I believe it was because it gave them time to really discuss things with people. It gave them time to devote their time to searching for the right people that would go out. And, of course, now, they didn't search for the right people. They just searched for people. They almost did drag them off at the street. And we had one that came in even before Bill Dotson that was a very young fella, had a family, and he had gotten thrown out of his home, and Mother took him in. And, of course, Eddie had industrial strength problems. By that, I mean he had mental problems. But anyhow, I was at a meeting in Youngstown here 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I met this man's nephew. And he had sobered up in 1949, I believe it was, because when my dad died, he came to my brother and introduced himself. And then this nephew of his. He has been sober since I think he said 17 years. So, as I say, you never know when the seed for growth and a sobriety and a new life is going to take hold. And we have to remember that for each AA that has caused a lot of problems in a family, there are 4 to 10 people that are affected by that. And I know we say we were affected. Well, we weren't really affected the way some people are, but we were still affected. And my mother was one of the first ones to recognize this family disease problem. And I think that she was the originator of that problem. I mean, not the problem, the solution. You know, you don't have to be an alcoholic to have a problem. And I'm sure that my brother and I were not always a joy to my parents. So we probably had our little inputs to that trouble that she had too. And I often wonder just what Mother and Dad would think today if they could come and see all of this. I think they would just be amazed. I know I am. But there's one thing in the old days that, like I say, they had so much time with each other that they could really set this seed in the ground right. And when they did that, then they would go out, just like your roots go out on a plant, and they would start new groups. And some of them did it even without a coffee pot and a resentment. Thank you. And Mother I call her the stabilizer, because Bill and Dad would sometimes get some weird ideas like, you know, hospital treatment centers. Who ever heard of those? Today it's a common thing, but in those days it wasn't, and I sure hope that today's treatment centers get rid of that formaldehyde smell. But whatever the problem is, whether it's nerves or overweight, sex, coke, alcoholism, debts, just so many groups that have grown from this simple seed. And there's only one thing that I wish people would remember, maybe 2 things. One is that there are always 2 founders, not just 1, 2. And thank you. And, you know, when I married my first husband, I thought, AA doesn't work for my family. And then, you know, being a slow learner, it finally dawned on me, it wasn't AA, it was the person. And it was the person. AA will not fail. And God won't fail. The people will, but if they want it, they will do it. And I can see that it has been done right here. And I thank you.
Thank you very much, Sue.